Today marks the start of our official offseason coverage with the top 5 teams in cap space, top 5 draft picks, and trade candidates. I'm Adam Wright. You're listening to the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Welcome to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. I'm Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros, and we have a full episode tonight. And we are doing our official offseason preview. We do this every year where we break down every aspect of it, starting with free agency. We talk about all of the draft prospects. We talk about draft picks. We talk about trade candidates. So that is what we have for this episode in store for you guys. This offseason, as for its official schedule, we have the franchise tag window that starts today and goes through March 5th. We have the legal tampering period that starts on March 11th, and then official free agency start is March 13th. And we have the combine that starts on February 26th and goes through, I believe, March 4th. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But the NFL draft, April 25th, and that goes through May. So we have I got to say, out of all of the off seasons for all of the 4 major sports between the NHL, the NBA, the MLB, the NFL has the most eventful off season. It's one where you can legitimately sit there and actually enjoy the content that's coming out. And all the news, all the players moving around. It's one of the more active free agencies out of all the sports in the U.S. So I'm excited for it.
You know what? So am I. I do enjoy the offseason. I do. From the draft to free agency. Not really the franchise tag window, but that's an argument for another time. But I definitely think we're going to see a lot of big changes this year, some big names on the move, the ones that don't get tagged, that is. And, of course, well, we have a lot of teams at the bottom. They're going to be working their way up. So, speaking of which, some of those bottom feeders, my understanding, have a lot of money. So, what's that looking like, Adam?
Well, we'll start off with the top 5 teams in cap space. And that leads off with number 1, which is Washington with 83 mil. New England with 73, Tennessee with 72 million, Chicago with 70 mil, and Indianapolis with 66 million. So keep in mind, this is something that we will touch on again when we go over the top 5 draft picks. The top 3 picks in the NFL draft are all in the top 5 in payroll. So Washington's number 2 overall, New England's number 3 overall in the draft, and Chicago, because of Carolina, of course, they weren't that bad, but Carolina helped them out. They have the number 1 overall pick. And so these teams have top five money in cap space. So going over Washington, obviously if you're number 2 overall, you don't take offensive line. And that's where they need the most help besides quarterback. So I think
I would actually argue defense, personally. Their defense last season couldn't stop a nosebleed, and their secondary was continually just bombed. It was awful.
Yeah, but the quarterback, if they're taking a new quarterback, they need to protect him. I would not go number 2 overall. You got to take a quarterback. I'm just
going to say, I feel like we can kind of save that for like our actual draft pick talk later in the segment.
Sure.
But this is just cap space, what you can do now. And obviously, I think you take a quarterback. We can obviously break it down like what it's going to be. But I'd say this free agency, there are a few good tackles. You go after them and you stock up on defense because you are now down both of your premium edge rushers
Sure.
in Chase Young and Montez Sweat. You drafted Emmanuel Forbes last year in the first round. He doesn't look that great. And Adam, you mentioned before this episode, there are a lot of good corners in free agency.
Sure.
So, and I don't care how great the Washington pass rush may or may not be, even with guys like Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. What difference does it make if the quarterback can just run out of the pocket and just have everything break down? Or your corner's already getting toasted before the rushers even get there. I mean, I'm just saying they have to look at that defense. And
Sure.
even though Ron Rivera is gone, he was still a defensive-minded guy. And when you have a defensive-minded coach in Ron Rivera and your defense is still that bad and he's gone, your defense might actually get worse.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I didn't say that we shouldn't look at the. I didn't say we shouldn't look at the defense. I was just saying that I think your top priority absolutely should be the offensive line. You can with the amount of money they have, 83 million, they could do both.
Oh,
but
yeah,
what I am saying is you should first be focusing on the those tackles that you have going there. There's a couple of good some offensive line free agents. It's not a deep free agency class, which is why I think you should, that among the fact that you are trying to draft a quarterback, you got to protect them, and that market could dry up fast because it's not deep.
Yeah.
They have a long laundry list of things they need to do. But I just think that you need to, priority one is protecting the quarterback. Priority two is definitely shore up that defense because they definitely need it. Going to New England, this is a team with tons and tons of needs. There is a combination of different things that Patriots fans want to be done through the draft and through free agency. My thoughts are work on that offensive line again. And so number 1 and 2 in cap space are going to be fighting for offensive line prospects, offensive line free agents, because they're both in the market for a quarterback. And whichever guy you draft next, you need to make sure that he's protected so that you don't hurt him in his first year. You don't want to pull a Cincinnati Bengals or an Indianapolis Colts where you have your franchise quarterback and you're getting him hurt all the time. In fact, the Colts did it twice. They did it this past year, and I was referring originally to Andrew Luck.
Then you realized.
And then also Peyton Manning, who they got killed eventually. And he fleed over to Denver. So you see what I mean?
Didn't Anthony Richardson just get hurt this year too?
Yes, and they are also top 5 in cap space. So a lot of teams here in the running for offensive line in free agency, and someone is going to get porked here.
Yeah.
Chicago is number 4. And there's Tennessee as well.
So
at 3. Sorry, I went out of order because I mentioned the Colts, who are 5. But these are all teams that need a lot of offensive line help. I guess the Bears don't.
Not as much, no. And Adam, right now I'm looking at some of like the top tackles on the market.
It's not that good.
No, it's not. I mean, the biggest name is obviously Tyron Smith of the Dallas Cowboys, but
he already said he wants to stay, apparently. And he's how old is he?
33. I was getting there. So it's beyond the fact that he wants to stay. He's 33. I don't know how much he has left in the tank. You have the Jets' Dwayne Brown, who just happens to be 38. You have now, here's an interesting one. New England's Trent Brown. New England has made it abundantly clear they're not going to re-sign him. But this guy has some horrible attitude issues. That man, unless you're waving $1 in front of him, does not care. You have Jonah Williams of the Cincinnati Bengals, who I think could use a great change of scenery. He'll be fine.
I think he'll be okay, yeah.
Yeah. I think Josh Neiman of I think that's how it's pronounced, of the Green Bay Packers is a great free agency addition.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have other guys like Cornelius Lucas and George Fant that are older,
but like okay.
Yeah.
Did George Fant even find a new team? Because I know he was a free agent last year.
Yeah, he was in Houston.
Has he been sitting on the couch this whole time?
No, he was in Houston.
Okay, so he made his way to right, which makes sense because early on in the season, during that season, they had some injury issues on that offensive line. But Donovan Smith is one I like a little bit. I know he's heavily penalized, but I think what the Kansas City Chiefs have taught me the past couple of years, an extremely penalized offensive line, one that does not play clean football. But you know what they do? Is they keep their quarterback upright. So if you're causing a lot of penalties, sometimes it'll be called, especially during the regular season. You're going to lose some yardage. But what would you rather have? Would you rather lose 10 yards from a holding call? Or would you rather have the quarterback get killed and then get injured, and then you have even bigger problems? And eventually, once you get to the postseason, the refs swallow their whistles. Like Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith.
Some teams.
Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith were penalized all the time. And they were holding, and those holding penalties never stopped. The penalties stopped. I'll stop there. The penalties stopped. The holding never did, which is why I'm thinking if you're looking to stay in contention and protect your quarterback, obviously we want a tackle who plays clean football. But I think I would rather one that gets penalized a lot than one that can't play the position. If that makes sense. Because Tom Brady had the same issue in Tampa, remember? Donovan Smith was in Tampa too.
Mm-hmm.
And Tristan Wirfs was okay. He's one of the better tackles in football. But that entire offensive line had penalty issues. They were not a disciplined football team. But they kept Brady upright and gave them a chance to win.
Yeah, I think you're right. But other than an offensive line, I mean, you look at a lot of these teams, right? You know, these guys that desperately need help, you know, Washington, Tennessee, Chicago, Indy. I'm noticing that they also need receiver help. Maybe not Chicago, but New England, and definitely not Washington, but New England, Tennessee, and to a lesser extent, Indy. They all need it. And when you look at this wide receiver class in free agency, holy crap, it is deep.
It's stacked.
Yeah, I mean, maybe these guys aren't all ones, but they could slot in and be like a high end two. Ready?
Yep.
Mike Evans, Odell Beckham Jr., Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, Cedric Wilson, Kendrick Bourne, DJ Chark, Hollywood Brown, Calvin Ridley. I don't know, Michael Pittman, T. Higgins, perhaps.
A lot of these guys are going to be tagged, but
yeah, and that's the rub, as they call it, isn't it? A lot of these guys, especially Higgins, maybe Pittman, I don't know, they're going to get tagged. And of course, my tag rant will be coming at a later date. Don't you worry about that, gang. But either way, you have guys like Ridley and guys like Brown and guys like Boyd that are still going to be free agents, and who can forget perennial 1,000-yard receiver Mike Evans. So
Mike Evans is a little on the older side, but
he could go to a win now team.
He could go to which is going to be a question of which team will that be, because none of these teams in the top 5, I think, will be winning in the next couple of years. Maybe Chicago. Maybe Chicago if they draft the right guy and he's ready to.
And they can develop him.
Yeah, or if they stick with Justin Fields, but I think if they stay with Justin Fields, they're not winning.
Yeah, Washington I don't think needs receiver help because you already have. I mean, I know you're losing Curtis Samuel, but you already have Scary Terry and Jahan Dotson. New England, they need literally all the help they can get. I've said many times that wide receiver has been a pressing need for years. They're going into off seasons with wide receivers their biggest need, and they're leaving with it as their biggest need, which I don't know how as a GM you let that happen, but whatever. The Titans, you have Treylon Burks, a shell of DeAndre Hopkins, and that's literally it.
Yeah. If you're New England, you have a couple of ways that you could cover this need too, because they're not going to Caleb Williams and Drake May aren't going to last. You could say you could draft Jaden Daniels, who's been so far a popular mock draft candidate. But if you let's say you went and took Marvin Harrison Jr. and then you went and got a veteran quarterback some way, somehow. Not an elite veteran, but somebody who could just hold down the fort while they build the rest of the team. They draft Marvin Harrison Jr. They sign free agents for the offensive line. And then maybe a year or two from now, they draft their guy. Because if you draft a wide receiver now and you don't do it correctly, and when I say don't do it correctly, I mean if you don't sign some free agents on that offensive line to help with this team, and sign the right ones, you could end up in the same position you were with Mac Jones. Because if you're signing these free agents on the offensive line, you're probably not going to get the wide receiver. So if you sign the wrong free agents, or if you just neglect it entirely, then you're literally in the same spot. And God forbid Jaden Daniels gets hurt or Drake May. Yeah. Which would make it even worse, because now you're just wasting a number 3 overall pick on a player who probably won't pan out, even if he was the guy. That's going to be a problem. So there's a couple ways that New England could tackle this. What they could also do is draft a wide receiver. You draft Jaden Daniels, you neglect the wide receiving position another year, and then you go out and you get some free agents for the offensive line. I think I would rather Jaden Daniels be protected than have targets, at least for this offseason. Then you go and get that guy. And maybe you work the trade market. T. Higgins is a guy who's available. Sign and trade.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I feel like that falls more under draft talk than anything, But as far as free agency goes, they do have the money to really work with a lot of stuff. We'll just have to see what they do, I guess.
Yeah, and we will get to that next. The top 5 draft picks and what they should do with it. That's next. Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. It's caught! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins! Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 and Secret Weapon Consulting. Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros. We're on to the NFL draft with the top 5 draft picks. So we lead off with number 1, which is the Bears, who acquired Carolina's first-round pick, turned into the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young. Even if he is the guy, clearly has not developed enough to lead this team to any wins, and the Bears were benefactors of that, getting the number 1 overall pick for the second year in a row. Washington is number 2. They were number 1 in cap space. They're number 2 on the draft boards. New England is number 3 overall. They were number 2 in cap space, number 3 on the draft boards. Arizona at 4, and then the Chargers at 5. So leading off in our thoughts on this draft, Chicago is whatever they do is going to shape the entire draft, because they for the second year in a row, they have a bit of a dilemma on their hands. So they are still unsure that Justin Fields is the guy. He played poorly to start the season, but heated up towards the end of it. So could they trade the number 1 overall pick and go to Justin Fields? Or could they trade Justin Fields and say, screw it, we're starting over? I lean starting over. He's had 3 years to actually prove something, that he is the right guy, and he still hasn't fully done it yet. Will he pan out? Maybe he could, but at this point, you're going to have to pay him. So are you going to pay 45 mil for a guy who you don't even know is the guy yet? I think that's a little stupid, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. And I just want to say it sucks because at the time I was a huge Justin Fields fan when he was in the draft. But I think it's actually in Fields' best interest to have a clean slate somewhere else, perhaps with a team like Pittsburgh or Atlanta.
Like, yeah, he did not develop enough of a passing ability.
Yeah.
They were saying it got better towards the end of the season, but it didn't. He threw for more than 250 yards once, and he didn't throw for more than one touchdown pass during that time. He was
exactly.
not.
And I've said this in previous episodes. Like this happened last year with the whole, he heats up at the end of the year. Well, no, once again, I have news for you. If you're just heating up at the end of the year, that doesn't help you if you're already darn near out of the playoffs and in a hole. Exactly. So the thing is with Chicago, it's not what we want them to do. It's what they will do. And frankly, I truly believe they're going to move on from Justin Fields. Why is that? New OC and a new quarterbacks coach. I'm just saying. Like,
that's all you need to know about it, really.
I mean, that's literally it. And the Bears have put out, and you can go read this, it would take and I quote, historic haul to get them to move on from the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a team that's planning to trade the number 1 pick.
Exactly.
But they also don't want to show their hand. Well, they don't want to say that they're going to keep it either, because they don't want anyone to anticipate what they're going to do. That's typically just GMing. You don't want to show your hand. But I agree with you. I think they are going. I think what they should do is keep the number 1 pick and trade Fields. I think that's what they're going to do, and I think it's the right decision. You need to move on from Justin Fields. He's a good kid. He looks like he has talent. He can play in this league, just not to the extent that the Bears want him to. Yeah. And it seems like they want him to do things that he clearly cannot do. They want him to pass more. Their offensive coordinator tried to get him to do that. He couldn't do it. He just can't. That's fine. It's okay. Go to the Falcons then, because that's a team that looks like you can be a fit there. Yeah. So Washington and New England are kind of in similar spots. Both teams that need a quarterback. Only difference is that Washington has the wide receivers. So I would more argue that they're actually closer to the Bears than the Patriots, because wide receiver isn't their biggest need. In fact, it's far from it. But Washington, it's a slam dunk. You are
quarterback. But I guess
you need to take a quarterback.
Yeah. But at this point in time, I guess the question is, do you take May or do you take Daniels? Now, I'm almost done with my scouting on both of them, and I lean more towards Jaden Daniels. I do. And I think in that offense, he's going to do well. I don't know about Drake May. I really don't. And I'll give him lots of credit, as when he played in North Carolina, he didn't have top flight receivers. He didn't have a nationally ranked offensive line. So he does show the ability to make something out of nothing. However, when it comes to going through his progressions and reading defenses, those leave a lot to be desired. And full disclosure, that should scare a lot of people, because all the issues are in that 6 inches between his ears. And it's not good. Like, it's actually very concerning. So I would actually take Jaden Daniels personally. However, I don't know why. I just can't shake this feeling that Washington is going to draft May. And then that leads us to New England, where I'm not saying May's a bad prospect, but a lot of his issues are cerebral. Like, even basic disguise coverages can fool him completely. He's very May. He's very gullible. He will, whenever the defense baits him into something, he will take the bait 9 out of 10 times. But as far as New England, well, I think that they're literally just going to take whoever is available between Daniels and May. As a Pats fan, I really hope it's Jaden Daniels personally, but I don't know. I mean, depending, and I know everybody is saying, oh, they need to go O-line, but let me tell you something. You do not go O-line top 3. It's kind of like taking a running back top 10. You don't do it.
It's just bad.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody says, oh, I know it's not the sexy, flashy position, but it's a position of need. But here's the thing. You
can find those later.
Exactly. You don't take O-line top 3 because there's no flash, because there is no visible ROI. That's just smart GMing. And the only way you can even think or even dream about going O-line that early is if this is like a consensus, like can't miss generational talent. And I got news for you. I love Olu Fashanu. I love Joe Alt. Yeah, no.
But even then, trade back and get another asset for the next year so that you could have a chance at another player that is a position of need that high up. Like I just think there's no excuse for drafting a tackle this early. And a lot of the times they don't pan out.
I personally don't think they will.
And a lot of the times
it depends on what they do in free agency, but that's the thing.
A lot of the times they don't pan out.
Yeah.
Another thing is, here's a reason why I've really been toying with the idea of taking Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3. I think he's more of a can't miss prospect than Jaden Daniels or Drake May. Because
absolutely.
Yes, I like Jaden Daniels more than Drake May, but Jaden Daniels makes me a little nervous too. His prospect comparisons have been more along the lines of dual threat quarterbacks, like not Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen type. I mean like Lamar Jackson. And I like Lamar Jackson. I love Lamar Jackson as much as the next NFL fan, as much as the next Ravens fan. I don't know if a player of that play style is capable of winning Super Bowls.
See, here's the thing with Jaden Daniels. He's not a run-first quarterback, and that kid is a cannon of an arm. He does. What worries me is actually something that a lot of people don't talk about.
He's oversized.
That man,
undersized. Undersized.
No, undersized in weight, not in height. He's like 6'4". Weight, you can bulk up. That's not that too big of a deal.
Sure.
It's just that this kid is armed to the teeth at LSU. He has potentially 2 receivers that could go in the first round in Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. If he goes to a team like New England where the cupboard is bare, then I don't know what's going to happen. You could give him the best O-line in the world. These receivers will not create separation. You can blame the O-line as much as you want, but Devontae Parker is statistically the worst receiver in the league at creating separation. Juju's bottom 10 in that category as well. Kendrick Bourne's coming off an ACL tear, and then there's Demario Douglas, who
Kendrick Bourne's a free agent too, by the way.
Oh yeah, and he's a free agent.
Also, so like, yeah, I agree with you there. Here's what I'm also very concerned about. When he does scramble, when he moves out of the pocket, he takes some irresponsible hits. That's something when I saw some of his film, that's the first thing that jumped out at me. Like, at least Lamar Jackson, he knew how to. Lamar Jackson, not only is he big, but he's elusive. He doesn't let himself get hit, and he knows when to slide. Cam Newton was at least big. He could plow through guys, and he was able to last at least 12 years in the league. Jaden Daniels is none of those things. I guess he's elusive, but he allows himself to get hits in ways that Lamar Jackson does not. So that's something that worries me a little bit.
That, but that's only when he rolls out of the pocket. Whenever he runs out and is like a design QB run or the play breaks down, he does slide and he does duck out of bounds. It's the whole east-west thing that is where my concerns come in. And either way, I will contend that is something that can be coached out of him.
Okay. If he can, then that's great. It's just, I don't know. There's something about it that just makes me nervous about it.
I agree.
Both of them make me nervous, especially since LSU is not known for quarterbacks. Let's not forget that. I know they got Joe Burrow, but Joe
Okay,
Burrow
other than Joe Burrow.
what's that?
You see, now look, I mean, I was going to say, I know we have Joe Burrow, but and you do raise a point. However, it is also worth noting, in my humble opinion, that everybody said the same thing about Ohio State and CJ Stroud. He looks fine to me. I like CJ Stroud, in fact. However,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I've never been too fond of arguments like that. Kind of like how you feel about when people say, "Oh, it's just the Cowboys, so of course they won't win." It's kind of like that same vein.
I don't like the argument, but the other side always ends up being right.
Yeah,
So like
fair. So maybe we're just flip-flopped here, but I mean, I'm just saying if we're not going to like one argument, we are not going to like the other.
all I'm
But
saying is there's an exception to every rule, but that doesn't mean that generally if it happens over and over and over again, then there probably is a reason for it. The way they're coached, the way that offense is run. I mean, they are loaded to the gills with talent in both of those schools on the wide receiver side. They're
yeah.
always getting and you said it yourself. He's loaded to the teeth
Oh
with
yeah.
wide receivers. So
Yeah.
there's just something off about
There
that.
is like more natural talent. Like I said, he's got a booming arm. He's like when it comes to throwing the ball, impeccable decision making, great locker room guy. So I like him. But moving on, like real quick, we've talked endlessly about these prospects, right? And we've talked about Chicago and Washington, New England, what they should do. Now, Arizona, I actually think that's an easy pick. Marvin Harrison Jr. Get
Or Malik
Kyler
Neighbors.
Murray huh?
Or Malik Neighbors, yeah.
No,
It
no,
would
no,
be a
no.
bit of a
Marvin
reach,
Harrison
but
Jr., that is the guy. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best prospect in this draft. You heard
I
it
know.
here first.
I know.
I'm only say
I'm sorry. I only say Marvin Harrison Jr. because I only say Malik Neighbors because this would be in case New England takes Harrison Jr., which is a
And full
possibility.
disclosure, I would want Marvin Harrison Jr. in New England. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. But I do think that quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3. I know it's rare, but I think it will happen.
It probably will, yeah.
Yeah, it probably will. But oh man, Kyler Murray slinging it deep to Marvin Harrison Jr. That's going to be scary, and I like that. I do.
Yeah, flashes of the old Larry Fitzgerald days. You can even go back to DeAndre Hopkins when he was traded there. They've just been known for good wide receiver play, and it just doesn't feel right that their number one receiver the past couple of years has been Marquise Brown.
Yep, and pick 5. Now, for me, this is the real mystery: the LA Chargers. I'm hearing rumblings of O-line. We already have guys like Corey Linsley and Rashawn Slater, but I guess other tackle wouldn't work, but you would have to move Rashawn Slater to right tackle, which I don't think is right.
Yeah.
Oh, I made a joke accidentally. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And then, of course, I've also heard rumors about Brock Bowers, the tight end. But after Kyle Pitts happened, you can probably take a guess about how I feel about tight ends going that early, at least in the top 5. I'm not saying Brock Bowers can't be good, but I don't know. So I've heard receiver or corner. That is what I'm hearing. And corners, they're the 2 kids from Alabama, Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think they're neck and neck at corner 1. Like you can flip them either way, in my humble opinion.
Sure.
But I don't think as good as they are, you can justify them going that high. So Chargers, I wouldn't rule them out. I think they're going to get Justin Herbert another weapon, be it probably Malik Neighbors would be a great option because I know you're not supposed to double dip at the same position in first round back-to-back drafts. Quentin Johnston looked terrible.
The Eagles did it once too.
Huh?
The Eagles did it once too.
Yep. But yeah, I was going to say though, Quentin Johnston does not look well. And I don't think Mike Williams is going to stay that much longer.
Yeah. That is, and he's also been a trade candidate. I've seen him waved around in trade rumors, which is, it would work out for them, but probably. Their wide receiver position is aging. Keenan Allen's getting older. Mike Williams is always getting hurt. it wouldn't be the worst idea for them to go to Malik Neighbors and kind of get younger at the position. Maybe they give Quentin Johnson another chance. Maybe. He could, I don't know. I'm not saying that he's going to pan out, but I'm just saying it was his first year. So maybe you give him another shot. But if they stay at 5, I think you and I can agree it's going to be either offensive line or wide receiver. Or they trade back and they take corner. What do you think of that?
For the Chargers, maybe.
What else do you think they would do?
I'm hearing wide receiver, corner. I don't buy into the tackle hype for them, but I would feel that if it goes Williams, May, Daniels, Harrison Jr., then I'm thinking it's either Malik Neighbors or, God help us, Brock Bowers.
Sure. All right. We're going to move on. We're going to get to our trade candidates for this offseason. Always the most fun part because players who you think wouldn't move end up being moved in a blockbuster deal. We're going to go over that next. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. It's caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Welcome to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88. Secret Weapon Consulting, Adam Wright with CJ Medeiros. All right, trade candidates. I'm going to come out with these in rapid fire fashion. And we'll lead off with probably the most popular one, which is Justin Fields. I think you and I have both agreed here. We believe, and if you feel differently, that's fine. We believe that they should trade Justin Fields. They clearly, it's been 3 years and it hasn't worked out. That means that either he can't play or he's just not a fit in their organization, which is fine, but you still got to move on from him. So 2 spots leading off, I think Atlanta would be a good spot. I think they have a lot of talent in their pass catching core. They just made a change in coaching, which should help with their offensive staff, which has struggled this past year. And they have a very good offensive line that can keep Fields on his own 2 feet. And this offense would be a lot more complementary to Justin Fields' style, which is running. I think this would work out very well for him. Also, the Steelers, I know you mentioned, CJ.
Yeah, because I don't really like Kenny Pickett. I never did. And at the time I was not a fan. And I know we all want to force oh my God, University of Pittsburgh man gets drafted to Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh boy, what fun. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't see that. I do not. But oh my God, can you imagine Justin Fields with George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth? Oh, that's going to be fun.
It would be pretty good if
not if you're Tuck, of course, but
Sure. But he's biased. He doesn't even care about whether it's a fit.
Yeah.
I just think what I'm worried about is his throwing ability in this league. He still has not proven that he can do it. He hasn't proven that yet, that he can throw it on a consistent basis. And it feels like this is a team, the Steelers, where you need a pass-first quarterback, a pocket passer to succeed. You have George Pickens, you have Pat Freiermuth, you have Deontay Johnson. This is a team that you need to throw with, especially since Najee Harris has not worked out. That offensive line is not friendly to running backs, let alone quarterbacks who try to run.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if you gave Fields to a guy like Mike Tomlin, he could probably figure something out. And I mean, something you have
Another
to try
9-8
something,
season.
right? Huh?
Another 9-8 season. He'll figure that out.
Oh yeah. Of course. But you have to try something. The offense has been stuck in a ditch for a long time, so you have to try something, right?
Yeah. Hassan Reddick. He is, I believe he is requested to be traded. Has he been granted permission to seek a trade, or has he just requested it?
Who? Again?
Hassan Reddick.
I remember reading somewhere that he has been granted permission to seek a trade.
Okay. Hassan Reddick. I look at Washington. If they decide not to spend in free agency and decide to go more towards the offensive line in free agency.
Also, Reddick, I do believe, wants a pay raise, so there's going to be that to consider. Also, I don't see Philly trading in division.
There's that too. Yeah. Yeah. How about the Dolphins? The Miami Dolphins, they've had a lot of injuries on that pass rush core. So for them to go out and trade for Hassan Reddick, make that team a lot more balanced, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because they're obviously all in right now. They want to win right now. And they had a very, I wouldn't say disappointing season. I guess you could say disappointing because they were supposed to be much better and they kind of fell apart towards the end of the year. But you have Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle, you have Tua, you have Raheem Mostert, you have Devin Achane, all on that offense. Oh my God, you have to go all in at that point. Go and get yourself some help on the other side of the ball. Because it's not even to say that the Dolphins have a bad defense. They need a better one.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Going towards, how about Justin Simmons?
Simmons of the Broncos is one that I think is more likely than people realize, because let me inform you about the Denver Broncos. This little experiment they're trying might be over before it really begins. Russell Wilson, more likely than not, is gone. And this is a guy we might get to later, but Jerry Jeudy is probably also going to be traded. And Justin Simmons is at the milestone of 30 years of age, or he's rapidly approaching. I think it's one of those situations where you have to do right by him, even though I think that's kind of a soft mindset. You have to do right by him and, just.
Well, he is 30 and
yeah. Okay. So he's 30. Yeah. No, the clock's ticking. I don't know how much longer Simmons himself wants to be there, because I remember a few years ago there was a big scare about how they kept tagging him, and there was a big, will he, won't he stay? At this point in time, you have to bite the bullet, especially if Sean Payton wants to mold this team into a way that he sees fit.
Well, once you hit 30 as an age for a DB, it's much more common for corners than safeties. Usually you start to fall off around that time. So, not only is the clock ticking, you're taking it year by year at this point. Not all positions are created equal. This isn't like the quarterback position where you turn 30, your career is just getting started.
Pretty much.
When you're a DB, it's once you're 30, it's any year your career can just give out and you're not the same player. So you might want, and that was this past year. I believe he's about to turn 31.
Maybe, I don't know.
So that is something to consider. So, by the start of the year, he'll still be 30, but, I think he turns 31 midway through the season. Still,
right.
The clock is, it's not just ticking there. It's almost up. Time's almost up for him.
Yeah. I think he should leave, frankly.
All right. We go to another wide receiver prospect on the same team as Justin Simmons, Jerry Jeudy. And, with that whole dilemma that happened between him and Steve Smith, the analyst, so that he called him a mid-tier wide receiver. He said he wasn't very good. Jerry Jeudy went and chirped at him. And then he went on to put up what kind of numbers that were completely mid?
Mhm.
What were the numbers again?
I don't know off
Something
the top of
bad.
my head, but he had like 2 catches for something yards.
He was
What game
bad.
was that? It was
I
against
completely
the
forget. But it was really bad. And it was a bad look for him because he called out Steve Smith for criticizing him in his game, which has not been up to snuff lately. At least not since he's been in the league. I mean, he was supposed to be this unbelievable wide receiver. And I get it. He's played with bad quarterbacks, but a lot of elite wide receivers have. And most of them still play really well. Remember DeAndre Hopkins early in his career?
Yeah.
The amount of junk that he played with in Houston, and he was still perennially one of the best wide receivers in the game. Larry Fitzgerald had not so good quarterback play. He still managed.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
Hmm.
his draft stock, or at least his trade value, has tanked this year, and he kind of did it by himself. If he didn't call this upon himself, if he didn't bring this upon himself by making a fool of himself like he did, he might still have some good draft. He might have some good value still, but he kind of brought this upon himself, and now it's at a point where people are saying, "Well, I mean, Steve Smith just called you out, and you proved him right." So
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like a cardinal sin for a lot of athletes that I've noticed, that when you get called out by the media, you never ever clap back, because if you run your mouth and you fail, oh my God, there's going to be a microscope placed on you. And a lot of it, I think, is ego, because Steve Smith Sr., if I recall correctly, he said something about how he's like unable to handle constructive criticism or something like that.
he
Here
did
we
say
go.
that, yes.
Yeah, he said, and I quote, mentally unable to handle constructive criticism, and called him an average wide receiver for it. Well, you proved him right. And a lot of it's just ego. He didn't have to respond, but he blew up the whole thing, and it didn't work.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton's a better wide receiver than him.
Oh, absolutely.
And he went through an ACL tear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't even call Cortland Sutton a wide receiver 1. I mean, barely. If he is, he's a low end, but he's still a much better wide receiver, and one I would gladly take on the New England Patriots.
Oh, yeah.
But I would not. I don't know if I'd want Jerry Jeudy. I think he would be he'd go for a 3rd round pick at best at this point. He would not go for a 1st or 2nd.
No, absolutely not.
All right. Our next one, Brandon Ayuk. This is a player. So something feels off about Brandon Ayuk. He's put up better and better statistics as his career has gone on. He started off with just under 1,000. Then he barely went over 1,000, and then he got 1,300 this year. So he's statistically gotten much better. But when you give it the eye test, he is, one could argue, he's more of their 3rd option. In fact, in that offense, and it may say more about the 49ers offense than anything, but still, I just don't want to devalue. I don't want to turn a blind eye to this. He doesn't seem like he plays as big a role in this offense as you may think. Like, do you remember during his 2nd season, in the beginning of the year, CJ?
Yeah.
That he wasn't playing many snaps. Like Kyle Shanahan, it almost felt like Kyle Shanahan was putting him in the doghouse.
Yeah, I don't know why. And I do to this day believe that he was, and I don't know. But mark my words, Ayuk, I don't know if he's actually happy there, because I mentioned this after the Super Bowl. Some people in Ayuk's camp went out and said, how do you only target him 3 times? We've had enough. Or it's like, this is why he's leaving. So I don't know.
It just, like, maybe it's the 49ers. Maybe it's their fault. I just don't want to ignore it. That's all. I don't want to say that it's his fault. I don't want to say he sucks, because he certainly doesn't. I'm
No.
just saying the fact that he doesn't he's not really the focal point of that offense.
Well,
And
I think this is
I
more about
know
the
it's an
Lakers' offense than anything.
I know it's an elite offense. This is like one of the best. You have all of these targets, but why does Deebo Samuel play a better role? Why does George Kittle play a bigger role? Like, why aren't you? I understand these are all elite targets, but why aren't you the better of them all?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of that actually rests on scheme and coaching, but
It could, which makes me wonder how would he do in a more traditional offense? How would he do on, let's say, I don't know. Let's say, how would he do on the Chiefs? He'd be pretty good on the Chiefs. Don't even
oh,
get me.
that man's getting 1,600 yards and like 13 touchdowns on the Chiefs. Let's be honest.
He should. He should. I'm saying he should be a really good player. And if he gets traded, I think he'll do very well. Something just feels off there.
Yeah.
All right. And it could be the Niners. I'm not saying it's him. I'm just saying something feels weird. Here I'm going to mention these two in the same breath because we are getting short on time. Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams.
Oh boy.
A couple reasons why I mentioned them in the same breath. Number one, I would say it's more of a pipe dream that either of these players get traded.
Mm-hmm.
It could still happen. Something could change. But like Devontae Adams, he has stated that he wants to be a Raider. He's expressed his displeasure in how Vegas has treated this team. But he still says this was his favorite team growing up. He wants to play with them. This is something that he always wanted to do. Besides just wanting to play with his best friend Derek Carr, who's now off the team. I think because of that, I think he should go ring chase. I think he should go find a new team and win a Super Bowl while he's still in his prime. Because he's 31. It's going to get to a point where at some point he's not going to be playing at an elite level like he is now. He should find his way somewhere where he could actually win a ring. But I don't know if he will. Stephon Diggs is in a different spot because the Bills haven't been bad. They've actually, in fact, been really good, but they can't seem to get over the hump. And it seems like the rapport between him and Josh Allen is fading fast. It doesn't look remember his first year in 2020 when he was a Bill and him and Josh Allen were like best friends. Doesn't it feel like it's a little off from that now?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they aren't friends anymore. Like they obviously need some sort of bond, but it doesn't seem like it was when they first started there.
Yeah. And let me tell you something. We as NFL fans are fed this narrative about, oh, the Bills, they're such a close-knit organization. It's like a big family. It's all kumbaya. Let me tell you something. They are correct. It is like that when they're winning. But we have seen time and time again that whole happy image is nothing more than a facade. And we're seeing the cracks in the armor. Heartbreak after heartbreak in the postseason. We see players, namely Stephon Diggs, jumping at each other's throats. He's pouting. He's just, and it seems like for the past 2 seasons, there's the big will he, won't he game of, will he demand a trade? Oh, he's posting cryptic things on social media. At this point in time, I see past it. He can't fool me. It's that same thing that he usually does for attention. And Buffalo, they seem to be that whole always the bridesmaid, never the bride kind of deal. It's just, and as long as they have Allen, being a turnover machine, as long as they have the slimmer version of Mike McCarthy in their coach there, what's his name? Sean McDermott. I'm sorry. I don't see it because he just got to grin and bear it. And that's basically what's going to happen. Will things get better? Oh, absolutely not. But that's just how I see it. And a quick note on Adams. Sure. I just don't think he's going anywhere. I really don't. Other than maybe the Jets, but the Raiders are going to demand a haul, and I don't think there's really going to be any team that's willing to meet those requirements.
Sure. Yeah. I don't want to, it's become the boy who cried wolf for me, which is the same thing that I said about Aaron Rodgers before he left. Like, yes, it's going to get to a point where he continues to hint at wanting to leave. And we're just going to say, yeah, whatever, pal, whatever you say, because he does it all the time, every single offseason. But at some point, he's going to say, you know what? I actually want out. And we're not going to believe him, but it actually happens. And it's all fun and games until Aaron Rodgers is a Jet. Right? It was the same deal there. Eventually, this frustration is actually going to boil over. He's going to say, you know what? I actually want out. And I don't think it's this year. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's this year. But it could be at some point in the near future. I mean, Diggs is getting older, and it's becoming more and more apparent that the Bills may not get over the hump. I'm so hesitant to say that they won't, but because talent-wise, Josh Allen is right there with Patrick Mahomes. But I don't know, man. This is such a tricky situation for the Bills. They're always in contention, but always fall short. They're like a Dallas Cowboys, except they don't get as much crap for it. All right, we're going to move on to our final segment. We asked you guys for your boldest predictions for this offseason. That's next. This is the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. I'm Adam Wright. CJ had to go, but it is me here, and we are going over the Fumblerooski fan box. So we post a question filter on our Instagram every Monday, and you can respond with hot takes, questions, and more. And we will discuss it and give you a shout out on our podcast. Respond to next week's fan box question to be featured on our show. So the question of the week was, what is your boldest prediction for these NFL playoffs? NFL for this NFL offseason. And as we said, so the offseason is interesting because it's a time where, yes, there's no football being played, but there's no shortage of action. There's always something that's going on, whether it's a blockbuster trade, a big splash free agent signing, a big draft trade. The draft always just the NFL draft happening is exciting. So a lot of great things going on. So we wanted to get your thoughts. What are you guys thinking for your boldest predictions? So starting off, Lucas Ferreira said the Chiefs get Justin Jefferson. And as insane as this would be if it happened, I know this is bold predictions. Dream on. This is such a pipe dream. I know that Justin Jefferson is an elite talent who probably, if he goes here, this would mean that he wants to go to a contender. I don't think the Chiefs are going to get him. And if they do, there's no way Minnesota would do it. I just don't think they would. I know if they would want their draft compensation, but I also think the Chiefs have a target on their backs. They don't want the Chiefs to keep winning, meaning Minnesota will look at this and think, do we want to give Patrick Mahomes another weapon, a young one by that, to keep on continuing to win championships? I don't think so. I understand there's some pettiness to that, but I genuinely think that teams are going to think twice before trading their star players to the Chiefs. All right. Eli Turner said Justin Fields stays with the Bears. And this would obviously imply that the Bears go and trade the first round pick, their number 1 overall draft choice. I personally, and CJ thinks this too, think this is a bad move. And I wish we had more representation on our podcast of people who believe that they should keep Fields, because there's a good amount of people there. Now, listen, this kid has talent. I'm not going to dispute that at all. We're 3 years in now. We're 3 years in, and he still has not proven that he can do it. That is a red flag to me. My criteria has always been for quarterbacks, you need to be able to prove that you are the guy within 3 years. If you haven't done it by then you won't at all. That's just my thoughts. And so far that really hasn't failed me. Usually they prove whether they are the guy or not in that time span. And if they haven't, then if they haven't, then that's another thing to look at. All right. Let's press eject sports said race to the top for the Bears pick. The winner, New England. So this is another person who believes that the Bears will keep Fields. And again, I wish I had more representation, because my viewpoints, I've been very clear. I think they should trade Fields. But if they do go quarterback, if they stick with Fields, you're absolutely right. Excuse me. They should trade the number 1 overall pick. You don't stay there if you're not going to take a quarterback. And I think you can trade a couple spots down and take Marvin Harrison Jr. At that point, it's going to be hard for Fields to actually be a bust. But I do think it'll be a Tua situation where, yes, they're winning games. Your quarterback's putting up statistics, but it's just not. You're just not a contending team. Like, you can make him look a little better than he is, but at that point, you're just masking what the player truly is. But if it's New England getting this pick, they got to go quarterback at that point. If you're at number 1, you don't take Marvin Harrison Jr. All right. CDO Tros, C. Rose. I'm not sure. Let me know about the pronunciation in the comment section. But Kelsey Mahomes beef divides locker room. So maybe people didn't understand this fan box question. I wasn't asking for your predictions about next season. I was asking about this offseason. So what do you think will happen in free agency, in the draft, trades, stuff like that? But Kelsey Mahomes beef, I was unaware there was beef. If there is some, then that would be really something. Only thing is, Kelsey is 35. He's about to be 35. So if there is beef, it's not going to last that long, because Kelsey won't be in the league too much longer. And if he is, he's not going to be the same player that he was. Father Time always wins, especially for the tight end position. All right. Steve Nunya says Steelers trade for Justin Fields. CJ and I were talking about this earlier on in the show. I think this would be a good fit for him. A team that is looking for a quarterback. They already drafted one recently. So this would probably mean that you don't want to commit another draft pick to it. So go and get Justin Fields. And the best part of this is it won't take a first round pick to get him. It'll take, at worst, a second round pick, which league consensus says that's what he's going to go for, around a second pick. And it could be third, fourth, either way, better than a first. All right. Patrick Mahomes' own said Chiefs re-sign Snead and Jones. These are two positions, the corner and the the cornerback and the defensive line or edge rusher. I mean, Chris Jones is basically a pass rusher. He's used that way. These are very expensive positions. So with that in mind, it's going to be tough for them to re-sign them, but Mahomes wants to restructure his deal. So it could happen. All right. Ian Mulhern said Justin Jefferson gets traded and Chris Jones goes elsewhere. So Chris Jones, he wants a lot of money. So if he does leave, then I see that being a possibility. And there's a lot of teams that need help on their interior defensive line. So Chris Jones has already won a couple championships. Maybe he wants to be paid now and be okay with losing. Washington is a team that sticks out for me. Justin Jefferson being traded, it's a pipe dream right now. And it looks like Jefferson wants to be a Viking, but if it falls through, I wouldn't rule them out trading him right now, because this is where he's still under contract for a little over a year. So it would make sense for them to go in and trade Fields now while his value is sky high. And we teased this during our last episode, CJ and I. If they wanted to trade him, they'd still be fine. They have TJ Hawkinson, they have Jordan Addison as a wide receiver 1, and they don't really have the quarterback. Yes, they have Kirk Cousins, but how long do they have him? Even if they don't resign him, even if they do re-sign him, if they do resign him, or excuse me, if they don't resign him, then I mean, you still need a quarterback. So, and I don't think Kirk Cousins was the guy anyways. He was a very talented quarterback. He didn't look like the guy who was going to win you a Super Bowl. All right. Grayson Mortimer said AJ Brown gets traded. This is a guy who has caused some issues in the locker room, apparently, for the Eagles. So if they wanted to go and trade AJ Brown, they would probably get a first-round pick out of it. He's still one of the best wide receivers in the game. And he's fairly young. I believe he's 26, 27? He's not 30 yet. So he has that going for him. So he's still a good young wide receiver where if he's traded to a contender, he could still win a ring. In fact, be a focal point of an offense that does it. Aaron Wise said Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the Commanders for 4 first-round picks. I'm not even entertaining that idea, Aaron. Come on. He's not. The Jets are not going to give up Aaron Rodgers, number 1. Number 2, he's not going for 4 first-round picks. He's 39. In fact, he's going to be 40. All right. Ryan Burke said T. Higgins gets franchise tagged, then traded amid not wanting to play under tag. If the Bengals franchise tag T. Higgins, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either he's going to re-sign under a big deal, or they trade him. They're not going to let him hit free agency again. They're not going to let him play under the tag. I think the Bengals want to re-sign him badly enough so that a deal will get done. And if it doesn't, he's going to get traded. All right. That's all our responses and all of our scheduled content. And with that, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for listening to us. We have new episodes out on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have all our episodes available on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and so much more. Also, be sure to follow our Instagram at Fumblerooski_podcast to keep up with our podcast and the latest coverage on the NFL. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Over and out.